Good morning. It says it's loading, so I don't know if this is actually going yet. Have the little, it says red little live. There we go. Good morning. Happy almost New Year. I'm going to be starting to record my podcast at 8:40 Central Time. So that's 5 minutes from now. I'm going to be recording it live on Facebook Live. And then this video will go up on my YouTube, and then the official podcast will be available on the places. Yay! Thanks, friend. On my podcast, which you can listen to on Apple Podcasts, like a lot of people do. It also streams on Spotify, and you can find me on Podbean as well. And I think Google Play. I think I signed up so I do stream on Google Play. How cute is this mug? This was a Yuletide treasure. Look, it has a little dragonfly on the inside. I quite enjoy this little guy. Today's podcast is going to be about New Year's. So if you have New Year's questions, feel free to drop them in the Facebook feed chat. Or you can also follow this conversation on Podbean as well. But I'm going to be looking at Facebook. So if you want to, I'm going to try to toggle between. But I know that when I really get going, I probably won't. You did find it on Google. Okay, sweet. Thank you. Yes, I am available on Google. So yeah, putting it out there. So yeah, leave your questions and comments in the Facebook chat would be best. That'll just be my friends because this is broadcasting only to friends. The Podbean will also have random people who want to listen to a podcast it's under the heading of religion, so it sometimes can get a little interesting. The people who find their way into the advanced bitchcraft podcast, looking for a religion podcast. So you might have some interesting conversations. New Year's Eve. New Year's Rocking Eve. It's so weird to do New Year's when you live in the Midwest time zone. It's probably great for parents though. Like when you watch the New Year's TV stuff when you're a little kid, then it's like midnight, and midnight's 11 o'clock, and you still have an hour. You're like, oh, it's actually not the new year for us yet. Some year, I would really like to do, however it works out with the time zones, to do like 24 hours of New Year's celebration and just be wherever, or be here in Omaha, be somewhere else. And then every hour, and I guess half hour because the time zone maps are very confusing, but every hour it's like, okay, yay, Happy New Year in Fiji, woo, Happy New Year in Munich, Happy New Year in wherever. Just go like every single hour. I have to be awake for a long time, so I might opt out of some of them. But I think that could be super fun to do. I've always kind of wanted to go do New Year's Eve wherever it happens first. I want to say it's Fiji, but I'm not sure. Wherever that dateline is. And so I could be like with the people who celebrate the New Year, like right on the button. I think that would be super fun. If you're watching, also those of you who are watching this on Facebook Live, which is everybody right now, because I haven't pushed go on Podbean, I did put a donation thing available just because I wanted to see what would happen, so you don't have to feel like you have to make donations. I chose Circle Sanctuary, which is a long-running pagan organization that is super rad, and if you're not familiar with Selena Fox, I highly recommend that you look her up. She is a treasure. She does and has done for years so much for the pagan community. She was a force behind being able to have the pentagram or pentacle on your gravestone if you're in the military. So there's all kinds of cool programming that Circle Sanctuary does. It's a nonprofit, pretty basic neo-pagan, so kind of works for a lot of different people's views and traditions. She has a podcast and does all kinds of Facebook lives about different holidays. And what other kind of stuff? They do sponsor a big um, festival every year too. Now it happens in June. It's right around the solstice, and the June one, the summer solstice. And I wanted to go. It was canceled this year, so I'm really going to try to make it. It's one of my New Year. I'm going to add that to my New Year's possibilities list to go to Circle Sanctuary's uh, festival. And now I forget the name of the festival because it's not called Circle Sanctuary. I think it's something that starts with an S. But yeah, oh man, witches, we are mourning the loss of our festivals. I'm sure all the music people are mourning the loss of their festivals too. I don't know if the Renaissance Fair people, did you all have your Renaissance fairs still? They still happen? I think a lot of them were canceled too. I mean, it's outside, but still, like, we still are supposed to get up close to people. Okay, so it is 8:40, so I'm going to officially start the podcast. So now you will hear me sounding very super official. All right, I just need to get in here and click record. Go live. Start. Thank you for listening to Stella Speaks, a DIY podcast about advanced bitchcraft. Basic witch, please. Today's podcast will focus on New Year's resolutions, New Year's possibilities. I will discuss my 2020 and review that, and then I'll be revealing the goddess of the year for 2021. I'd like to put a content note at the beginning of this one that there will be a lot of discussion about weight loss and disordered eating. So if you find that uncomfortable or triggering, I'm going to try to be as body positive as possible, but I'm sure that it's gonna come up. And so if you stumble into my Facebook Live at that point and you weren't prepped for that, I do apologize. But it is a pretty big part of my story for 2020. So I'm guessing that's gonna come up. We'll begin as we usually do with a land acknowledgement. This particular podcast is recorded on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Omaha tribe. This area is also home to other indigenous people, the Lakota and Dakota, as well as the Ponca. And on this podcast, we acknowledge that fact that we live in occupied territory illegally. And I encourage you to research the people who are indigenous to your area. If you live anywhere here in the Western Hemisphere, you live on stolen land. And we want to work to acknowledge that fact and work for liberation and work in solidarity with all Indigenous people. All right, and then also on today's podcast, this New Year's episode is being recorded on my grandmother's birthday. So happy birthday to Charlotte Hyatt, who is no longer with us. She passed away 4 years ago, the day before her birthday, and miss her dearly. If things were open and safe, I would be going to Denny's today because that was her spot. She liked to go there almost every day for lunch. Started going, like, she and my grandpa would go all the time together, and then she sort of kept it up. So this podcast is dedicated to her memory. All right, so things to talk about with New Year's. First thing that I want to talk about is that from a witchy perspective, I think that it's important to think about how you're handling the new year and your thoughts around it, the words you're putting out into the universe, and maybe even your resolutions if that's part of your personal practice, whether that's witchy resolutions or not. We'll kind of be covering a gambit of things. So a lot of people in the witchy community are familiar with a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I have no idea about this book. I read it. I liked it. I think there's a lot of wisdom in it. It purports to be Toltec wisdom, and I have no idea the veracity of any of those things. One of the four agreements that he asks you to make with yourself, with the universe, is to be impeccable with your word. And that really struck me hard. As a witch, one of the things that's so important to us is our words. Like, spells are called spells, like spelling things out. Words are super important. And I think that the vibration you put out into the universe matters. You see, oh my gosh, you guys can see all my stuff on my couch. Cute. Those people who are watching on video are really getting a treat. Oh, you can see the cat litter over my shoulder too. Cute. So being impeccable with your word means that we were not sloppy. So we don't say things like, I will do this, or I'm going to do that, or I promise this, unless you really mean it. And so when we put these New Year's resolutions out into the world and we say, I'm going to lose weight, I am going to work out 500 times, that'll probably be a lot, 300 times. I'm going to, like, even if we approach our New Year's resolutions with a spirit of self-love and compassion, even if we approach our New Year's resolutions with realism, even if we make SMART goals, right? Goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, or whatever you use for your personal SMART acronym. Even if we do those things, when we say that we're going to do something and then we don't do it, our brain learns not to trust us. And as a person who struggled with disordered eating, I can tell you that I learned to not trust myself, because I would say, I'm not going to eat such and such food item. I am not going to, like, make all these promises to myself and promises to the gods. Like, I would swear to Hecate that I wouldn't eat sugar for 24 hours, whatever. I would make these promises. And if I would break promises to myself all the time. And I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to this. I'm not going to drink coffee. And when you say you're not going to do something and then you do it, or when you say you're going to do something and then you don't, and you make up, and of course life happens, but when you put that out into the universe, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then you don't do it. My experience from a purely psychological perspective is that I learned to not trust myself. And then from a witchy perspective, I think that influences then how I show up in my witchcraft. Because if I'm going to say things like, so mote it be, we say that a lot of times in the witchy community. I believe it comes from the Freemasons, I'm pretty sure. So mote it be, which means it is so, it is done. So if I do a spell and I say, so mote it be, it's kind of like an amen, or this will happen, or it's not really an ashe, but it's kind of like one of those words in another spiritual tradition that means like, this is sealed, this is done, amen. So mote it be, this will happen. If I have been giving myself a lot of so mote it be's that I don't actually follow through on, like, oh, I'm going to go on the treadmill today, oh, I'm going to do this today, and then I don't actually do it, I think that I learned not to trust myself. And then I don't trust myself in my witchcraft. And then if my intentions, I don't trust my intentions, then I'm putting all this wishy-washy doubt stuff out in the universe. Have the gods showed up for me and have things still worked out? Absolutely, in all kinds of ways. But I think it's important to think about how you're approaching it. And so one thing that I did this year, because I love to make resolutions, I'll make a big old whole long list. I don't do as many as my friend Angela, who does like 100 a year. She's done that for years and years. She does like 100 resolutions a year, and then she doesn't keep hardly any of them, but she's fine with that. She's like, I said I wanted to, listen to such and such many podcasts, or I wanted, they're all very measurable. And she said, well, I didn't hit 30, but I got 5, and I feel awesome because there's 5 I wouldn't have done before, or whatever the task is. So if that's you, if your brain is cool with making resolutions and big lists like that, and you don't have feelings about it, then you're fine. Like, you don't have to listen to this version of it. But for me, if I make a big list like that, which I do like to put a lot of things out there, then the things I don't accomplish, I feel like, I wanted to do blah, 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 but I didn't do it this year. And so one easy little hack that I did with my New Year's resolutions this year that I feel really good about is and I keep saying resolutions. I don't have resolutions this year. I am not resolving to do any of these things in particular. I have a list of New Year's possibilities. And that one word just opened up a whole universe of calm for me. It's a possibility. And it means it's likely to happen. It means it could happen. It means that, and then possibility kind of has a romantic kind of cadence to it too. Like it's possible, it could happen. It's exciting to think about. So I'm really excited about having a list of New Year's possibilities this year. I'm still going to go through, I have a big list of them, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to SMART goalify a few, right, that I really want to commit to doing within a certain number of things within this calendar year or by a certain time this year. They're not all like all year long things. And I actually quite enjoy that. So that's my hack to you. If you also feel bad about New Year's resolutions, and you can just opt out. Like I know people are like, I just don't make New Year's resolutions, and that's also smart and fine. Also, want to kind of think about too, like the new year can start at any time because time is a construct. So we have this what is it, the Julian calendar, Gregorian calendar? I forget my history, whichever one, right? We have the calendar um, that states that this is the new year, January 1st. But that is not the new year in all traditions and all cultures over all time. It's just a random day that somebody picked. And it has something to do with Romans, I guess, and then Catholics later. It's all made up. So you could have your new year could be on your birthday. A lot of times I'll set certain resolutions and kind of ideas and possibilities and goals for the year on my birthday. I'll kind of reassess. For me, that works really great too because my birthday's in May. So I'm kind of halfway through the calendar year, not quite, can kind of make some adjustments. Um, you could do a lot of witches consider Samhain or Halloween to be the new year. So our new for some traditions, their new year starts then. So that can work. Some people like to do this winter solstice. So that already passed. But it's kind of also a new beginning because sunshine is returning. The astrologically speaking, in Greek astrology, traditional astrology that you'd think of, like what's your sign type astrology, the new year begins with Aries. So that starts at the spring equinox, which is also very intuitively makes sense, like springtime, like things are coming back alive. So the year is beginning again. So that can work. You can have that be your new year. Really, any of the holidays of the pagan calendar, you can probably make an argument. You could make an argument. Some of them might not be as good. You could have your new year start around the school year. I know that a lot of, even if you're not in school anymore, if you went to school for 12 plus years of your life, starting in August, you probably have some August feelings that come up that you might not even notice. That it's like new year, new me type feelings. So yeah, your new year can start whenever you want. So you can take this podcast and listen to it later and have a new year for yourself. But I actually kind of like doing a traditional new year at this time. Mine sort of is sort of a like a lot of pagan things. It's sort of a season rather than a day. So I kind of start thinking about the year probably around Halloween, like dark. It's really getting dark. It's getting cold. It's kind of a time of reflection. And then I really start setting my intentions for the year around the winter solstice. So I give myself from the winter solstice through about New Year's Eve to kind of really write things down, figure out what I'm going to do. New Year's Eve, I have some particular traditions that I like to do, and then I'll have a few things that I want to start the clock running kind of on January 1st. My bare minimum that I'll do is on New Year's Eve, I'll walk a labyrinth. I'll draw a tarot or oracle card that day. I will make sure I've chosen the goddess of the year by then, and then my word of the year, which is something that a principal that I worked for, we had a word of the year for the school year, and I've incorporated it into my personal life because I really love it. Really distills things down. If your word is joy or gratitude or whatever your word for the year is, then it's an easy heuristic to have in your brain. Like, am I living in alignment with this word? So those are some things that I do. If you are interested in something, I'll give you some suggestions or just my experience. And if it's not something that you might want to try, that's awesome. So going a little bit more into specifics about labyrinth walking. So there's probably a labyrinth nearby where you live. There's one less than a mile away from me that I can walk to, and then another one that I really like up the road, a little further west. That's in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm sure that if you live in a bigger city than Omaha, you have a labyrinth nearby. If you have a smaller one, you might have one too. We have several here in town. Those are just the two that I like. So labyrinths are really great to do at any time of transition. So Sunday, like the beginning of the week, full moons, new moons, birthdays. I like to walk a birthday labyrinth. Any pagan holiday, any day of transition, like people's birthdays or the days that they passed. And I love to do this New Year's Eve one. Aquaricorn, who you've heard on my podcast, and my collaborator for Hex of the City. We've done it together now twice. So this will be our third year doing it together. He's welcome to come if he's feeling up to it. He's got a whole lot of stuff going on in his life. Check out his YouTube and you'll and his Facebook. A lot of it's public. You'll see he's going through it. So we'll see if we do it together. But so in the labyrinth, it's not a maze, so you can't get lost unless it's overgrown or it's icy and you're walking over it. Then sometimes you might lose your way. But in theory, you can't get lost in a labyrinth because you just walk along the path. It doesn't have any. It's not a maze, so it's not like, oh, do I have to? You just have one path. So you walk your path in, you get into the center, and then you walk your way out. That's really all you have to do. But I'll put some book recommendations in the notes here when I'm done. There are some things you can do, like setting an intention. You can kind of walk and have a word or phrase that you're thinking about, or an image you're meditating on, or you can just focus on your breath. Anything related to like your basic prayer and meditation type strategies you can do as you walk in. When you get to the middle, it's recommended that you spend some time there. And then you can walk your way out and then kind of ritually end it for yourself. And so what I'll do for New Year's is I'll say something at the beginning, kind of setting an intention of reflection. So I'll walk in. I have a playlist that I like to listen to. It's kind of designed to evoke a certain mood. It's contemplative and a tiny bit sad. It's kind of a, yeah, there's some, forget who's all on it. Now I'm nervous, so I can't remember. I think there's some S.J. Tucker on there. What's her name that I love so much from the New Pornographers? I'm blanking on her name. Redhead, Canadian. Can't remember. I think her song, I Wish I Was the Moon Tonight, is maybe on there. Nico Case. Forget which. So I have a handful of songs on there. Midnight Radio, I'm pretty sure, from Look at the 8 inches on there. The cat's playing behind me, so that sound's picking up. So I'll listen to music in this particular one, just kind of reflect on the year. When I get to the center, last year we did a ritual burning of some sort. I think we maybe burned just like incense matches, something small. If anyone who was there, because there were 4 of us last year, if anyone who was there remembers what we burned, remind me. We burnt, maybe it was just even matches. Kind of like released things from the previous year. Then we all drew a card. I think everybody had like a different tarot deck or oracle deck. I drew from an oracle deck. I drew, and that's been a theme for the year. And oftentimes throughout the year, that card has been on my altar. Not all the time, but a lot of times I have it on. I drew from the Goddess Inspiration Oracle deck, which I love this deck so much. The very first tarot cards that I ever had were Chris Swalder's deck. My friend Lindy gave me the Goddess Tarot. It was the first tarot deck that I owned. And this is very similar to the Goddess Tarot deck. It's an oracle deck. So instead of having the traditional tarot meanings, there's just a goddess, and then a little information about her realm or what she's in charge of, and then a little affirmation or almost like a fortune cookie type one sentence. And so I drew Lakshmi, and it's welcome wealth in all its forms, goddess of abundance. And this card twisted my brain all year long. All year long. I was like, what does this mean? Like, I'm living my minimalist life and I work as a teacher. I have a salary. Like, how do I welcome wealth in all its forms? Am I supposed to get a side hustle? Am I supposed to get a new job? Am I supposed to go back and get my master's so I make more money? Like, what is this money about? And finally, in these last few weeks, I figured it out after so many, like for the first month, a few months of the year, I just kept drawing tarot cards and oracle cards that were all about creativity and money. I was like, what is this? What is this about? I finally realized it. Welcome wealth in all its forms, which means I quit my job and I'm doing things differently. It doesn't mean I make more money. It means welcome wealth in all its forms. It also meant accepting things from people. Like when people offer to, like when my boyfriend would offer, you know, I'll pay for you to come fly out and see me or whatever. Like having to say, yeah, like welcoming wealth in all its forms. And not just wealth as in money, but like people's time and love. And yeah, it's been about allowing myself to receive and to ask for help. And that's been very difficult for me. So I'm finally getting my brain around this to welcome wealth in all its forms. So that took me some time. And then I chose my word of the year in the labyrinth. So I don't know what my word for 2021 is. My word for 2020 was trust. It was trust. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust other people. I didn't trust the gods. I had a really hard, I don't know. It was just when I started the year, it was about learning to trust myself. That was the goal. But it became, the word trust grew, and it grew to trusting that there was a divine force that actually gives a shit about me, and trusting that things are going to be okay, and trusting that I can handle it. I can handle life. Trusting other people and not foolishly, but not always being on edge that people aren't going to give me what I want and aren't going to give me the closeness that I desire. But I'm kind of, I've learned, we'll talk about this later when I talk about books of the year. I learned that I have anxious and avoidant attachment, so that's fun. So that has a lot to do with trust. So yeah, powerful stuff. I will let you know what else happens with that for me this year. But it's not New Year's Eve yet, so I have not walked the labyrinth yet. So I don't know what my card is of the year, and I don't know what my word for the year is. I did pick the goddess of the year already. That's happening. I'll be revealing that towards the end of the episode. So as you're set, so that's a possibility. Another cool thing that I'm doing this year for New Year's is my friend Beth, who used to run a feminist book club that I went to a lot, and therefore opened my life up in so many ways, because that's where I met my friend Angela and my friend Karen, and I have so many opportunities and joys in my life that are because of Beth. She's hosting a digital New Year's party on Zoom, and she packed up these little gift bags, and they're full of good luck superstitions, and there'll be like a list of things in there that we're going to do. So you're supposed to wear certain colors and patterns to be lucky, and then we have all these little tasks that we're going to do throughout the night. So I'm really excited to do that. It's going to be a good time. The only ones that I usually do is a kiss at New Year's, and then if I don't have somebody to kiss, which has not really been the case in my adult life, but like when I was a kid, I adopted the Spanish tradition of the 12 grapes. So when it's midnight and it's like ding, 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 right, the 12 chimes, you try to eat as many grapes as you can. You get like a group of 12, and you try to eat as many grapes as you can, and however many grapes you can eat from the first chime to the 12th chime is how many months of good luck you'll have. I am very egotistical and competitive and have an eating disorder, so you better believe I can get 12 grapes in 12 seconds, please. Don't embarrass yourself with me. I will get 12 years. Good luck. I will not be doing that one this year. But anyway, that's what I did for my very first New Year in the new millennium, sort of, the year 2000. That's what we did because we were like freshmen or sophomores in high school. We were good kids who didn't drink. So we did 12 grapes at my little friends gathering. So, and 2000, the year 2000 did not go weird. 2020 was a very strange year. Oh my gosh. Apparently, I'm finding from a friend from India, they do grapes too. At midnight, you do grapes? That's awesome. I had no idea. If you try to do all the traditions, which we're going to try to do, imagine I can't do them all at midnight. Imagine my friend has it paced out over a series of hours or something, that we're going to do all of these activities. And my boyfriend's going to be doing it digitally, but he lives in a different time zone. So it'll be like an hour later for him. So he's going to experience what it's like, Midwest life, but in the reverse of when people are like, Happy New Year! And you're like, he's going to be like, that already happened. We did that an hour ago. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, the smart part of the goals. So if you do decide to set a resolution and you want to make it very goal-ish, right? So I have my list of New Year's possibilities, some of which I will be transforming into SMART goals that we'll reassess about every month. I've found that heuristic very helpful. SMART, so S specific, M measurable, A attainable, R relevant, T time bound. So what that means is you don't want to set yourself like these wishy-washy goals that you won't know if you accomplish them or not. So if I say like, I want to work out more. Well, okay. Well, more than what? More than last year? How many hours did you work out last year? How are you going to keep track to know if you worked out more or not? So making it specific. So for me, I want to do resistance training in particular. Measurable. I will set like a number goal. So I'll say, I want to work out 50 times in 2020, doing resistance training. Okay. A, is that achievable? 50 times, that's once a month. Excuse me, that's once a week, minus 2 weeks of, maybe I got sick or maybe I forgot or whatever. That's attainable. But challenging enough that it's worth saying. If I said, like, oh, I want to work out once this year, like, okay. And then are relevant. Do I care about it? Does it matter to me, or am I just setting this goal for the hell of it? Does it matter to me to do resistance training? Yes, I want to be stronger, and I know that it's good for my bones. Time bound, so it needs to have an end date. So I said by the end of the year. So by the end of the year is my date. So that's my SMART goal. Here's Luna's SMART goal. Is to be the cutest kitty cat in the whole world. Oh, she already achieved it. That's a really shitty thing to say when my other cat is right here. He's also the prettiest boy cat in the world. Some apps that you might find helpful that I use and that I love. The Calm app. So if you have any of your resolutions have to do with meditation, I have 2 recommendations. If you don't want to pay for it, do the Insight Timer. I don't think it's as good of an app, but it's for the free version has a lot of things available. You can also connect with other users. Back when I used it, but I don't know if that's still true. But that was kind of a cool feature. I like little mini meditation groups and stuff. If you want to spend a little money, the Calm app is good. There's an unpaid version which is okay, but the paid version of Calm is amazing. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. If you're a teacher, you can get it for free. You just have to sign up with your school email. At least that was true like 3 or 4 years ago when I signed up for it. So if you're a teacher or a professor, educator, you work in higher ed, whatever, maybe even students, I don't know. But it's worth the money. I would pay for it. And I hate paying for apps. Another app that I find useful is Stick. It is so good. If you are a hard case, Stick is a really good app. So it's Stick with an extra K. So Stickk. I used it this last year to get some writing done, and it's amazing because it forces you kind of to do whatever your goal is, because you'll lose money if you don't. So what you do is you say you're going to do something, you put it on the app, other people can see it, other people can follow it. You can have like a coach or mentor type person who is your accountability person, and then you can spend money. So here's how I did it. I wanted to get some writing done, and I really struggle with that. I am having a hard time. I've been working on this same novel for like 3 or 4 years. It's a slog. I procrastinated. I go back to it. I procrastinated. I go back to it. And I wanted to get some writing done. So what I did is I said, I forget the number, but so I'll just make this all up. Let's say I told myself I wanted to write 300 words a day, Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays, I wanted to do some sort of writing task, but it didn't have to be on the novel. And then I put a $50 penalty. So if I didn't log in with like a screenshot of my word count by midnight that night, I would lose $50. And that's pretty significant. And so that app really helped me get that done. I did it I did an anti-charity donation. So my $50 would go to a charity that I hate. It happened to be the Trump political campaign. So that really motivated me, because if it was, $50 goes to feed hungry people, or $50 goes to something amazing, I'd be like, oh, well, $50 went to something I like, so it's okay. No, do the anti-charity. I found that very motivating, because I did not want to give them one penny of my money. So that was pretty effective for me. So you can do that with short-term, long-term goals. It doesn't have to be a big amount of money, and you don't have to do the anti-charity. So if it's going to be something long-term, like I'm thinking about using Stick for like a long-term goal this year, like I really want to meditate every single day in the year 2021. Every single day. So, and I'm going to set the bar low. It's going to be like a baseline bare minimum, like 1 minute every single day. The goal is to do more, like my secret goal, right? But to feel like I did it 1 minute a day. And since it's so many days, and there's a possibility of, I did it, but I forgot to log in or whatever, I would make the money a little bit less, and I would probably make it go to a charity. But if it's for like a short-term project that's really important and I really want to light a fire under myself, I would set the dollar amount high, which to me $50 felt pretty significant. Set the dollar amount high and have it go to something I don't like. And that for me is very motivating. So that app's a great one. If you want to make positive changes in your life and you want them to be research based, but you just want to be guided through it, like you don't want to have to think about it so much, I really like that Fabulous app. It's pretty good. So you choose like I think it's Duke University. Some university created it. It's very interactive. Not with other people really so much, but with the app itself. You get to like go on a journey, and it's got sort of a Joseph Campbell kind of feeling of like you conquer different things along your journey. It's pretty fun. And you can choose something like I want to focus more, or I want to eat better, or whatever. They have all kinds of goals in there, and then you just kind of go along with those. And they have mini challenges too, and those are interactive. Cat is behind me. Very handsome. That's Widdershins. So I love that. And then Bloom I've been experimenting with. It's a cognitive behavioral therapy app, but it's like pre-made. It's not an actual therapist. So that's been kind of fun to do. And then Meetup. So there are meetups that are happening online. So finding a community I find really helpful. So you can find people who are into what you're into. So if your goal is to be more adventurous, they have all these like adventurer groups or whatever. And then just like accountability. So like basic things, like it can just be a text message. Like I have a workout text accountability partner, and we just text each other every day what we're going to do for our workout. So it's like a bookend. We bookend it. So before I work out, I say, I'm going to do this, and then I do it. And then when I'm done, I commit that I did it. And we just kind of check in on each other that way. And those would be my New Year's reflections and suggestions. I didn't get paid by any of those apps to talk about them, which I think is some nonsense. I am an influencer, so I should really be paid. But I just like talking, so there it is for free. Am I gonna reveal the goddess of the year yet? Am I ready to talk about it? That's the big reveal. Okay. So before I do the big reveal of the goddess of the year, I'll talk about last year's goddess of the year in 2020 and how it went for me. 2020 was a garbage year for the world. It was a fantastic year for Stella. So I will say that 2020 was transformative for me. So far in 2020, knock on wood, I have a couple days. So far, I've been healthy, so I haven't had an experience with the pandemic personally, although it's touched me very much because some of my friends and family, and then my friends' family, my family's friends, and all that kind of thing, have definitely been affected. My cats are fighting behind me. Take a look; they're very cute. But I got cats this year, so I got these two kittens. That was not easy to do because this apartment does not allow pets. And so I had to humble myself enough to say, I'm struggling and I'm lonely, and ask my therapist to prescribe me cats. She had to write out a little prescription saying, yes, you should get some pets, and submitted that to my landlord, and they're my emotional support animals. That is so hard to admit and to say because I like to pretend that I have all my stuff together. And I mean, I do. I have my life together, and I'm working towards having a even healthier life. But I had to overcome a whole lot inside that's like, oh, you're not sick enough to need animals. Um, it's not bad enough. And so that was tricky. In May, my divorce was final. So my ex and I split up way last year. Like we split up April of 2019. So we were not together. But my divorce was finalized in May, on May Day, actually, which is kind of beautiful, full circle type thing. Um, I What else happened? So all of this is so interesting because last year's goddess of the year was me. Like usually for my goddess of the year, I pick a goddess and then I do a ritual with her every month and I read about her and I just like learn or do a meditation. And I just really wanted to learn to love myself. And so I made myself the goddess of the year. The idea not being that I would worship myself, but I would honor the divine spark within. And I ended up doing a lot of self-care stuff this year is kind of how it ended up turning out. Kind of turned out that way. So I released a lot of things. This year was kind of a year of releasing things for me. So, I officially got divorced. I released a lot of feelings around what that meant. I released the word should. I did that. Felicia Webster here in town hosted right before the solstice a release, and it was beautiful and amazing. I could do a whole podcast on it, but I released the word should from my life, which is a process. But so I'm learning to let go of not beating myself up with I should do this, I should do that. Things should be this way. I quit my job, so I left teaching due to how the pandemic was being handled, and I've been doing some other interesting things to earn money, legal things. That sounds like shady. I just don't want to talk about it on the podcast, but I'm opening up different avenues for income that have been really interesting for me. I started a yoga teacher training, which has been transformative, in grad school. What else? I got rid of my car. I sold my car. I don't enjoy owning a car. And so it's yet another, step down my minimalist journey that's been happening the last like 3 or 4 years. I have to look at the numbers. And then maybe most importantly, and again, this is where your content note and trigger warning come back in. Most importantly, I got help. I got help around eating. So I reached a crisis point with food in June of this year. I was really going through it. I was really going through it. I, oh, was really in a lot of pain. I was making a lot of dangerous decisions around my health when it came to food and how I handled it. And I got help. And so that has been, of all the things this year, getting help around what I was putting in my body and transforming my relationship with food and alcohol is the most important thing that happened in 2020. And if nothing else happened, that happened. And so I did a consultation with an eating disorder clinic, and this was before, while I was still working, so I still had insurance. It was an outpatient program that they had recommended for me, and it ended up with insurance. It was going to be like $200 a day for about a 6 to 8 week program. They imagined it would take me about that long, and so I ended up not doing that because that's so much money. So I ended up finding recovery in a different way, which I'm not going to talk about publicly. I will, if you know me personally or you have my contact information, feel free to talk to me privately about that. I will just say that I'm doing a lot better. I am not eating things that cause a reaction in my body that's not good for me. And I'm not doing things to get rid of food that I think, actions that I used to take in the past, where I would binge and then I would get rid of food in a variety of ways. And so I stopped doing that. It'll be 6 months on January 6th. So that has been the biggest gift that I could give myself. And so if I think about honoring the divine spark within, if your body is a temple, blah, 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 I've kind of changed some things up. So that's that. So the only thing with the Goddess of the Year that I want to do that I haven't done yet is I want to make one of those lists of correspondences. Like if you get a book that has like a list of gods and goddesses in the back, it'll have like a list of their correspondences. Like, so if you're going to pray to them, like what should you do or say, or what kind of offerings do they like? And so I told myself I'd do that. So I'm going to do that for myself. That was really the only thing I promised I would do this year. So I have like 1 or 2 days to do that. But other than that, the way that the Goddess of the Year ended up turning out was actually kind of ego reduction and not being the center of my universe and thinking about things differently, and trust. So my word trust that I said last year actually ended up being a big part of that, trusting the divine more to guide my life. So that happened. So this year, so the big reveal, the Goddess of the Year. The Goddess of the Year is, oh, bum, 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 the Goddess Breed, who is like basically my patroness. So I actually have never had Breed for the Goddess of the Year because she's a given. She's the most important goddess in my life. I am her priestess. Like it's a whole thing. But I was just really drawn to like really deepening my relationship with Breed this year, particularly from an academic standpoint. Like I have done so many rituals with Breed and flame tending and all the things. If you followed my podcast or my blog or me and my personal life for the last 6 or 7 years, she's a big deal. But she's never been the Goddess of the Year, and we're going back to basics. So I'll be posting probably a little bit about my journey with that this year. My friend Alec is an Irish polytheist, or used to identify as such. I don't know what they're really up to these days because pandemic life, but gave me some suggestions of some Irish polytheist, almost Reconstructionist type people who are going to help me out with the academic mythological research part with the Goddess of the Year. So yeah, Breed. Also, you can say Bride or Bridget or Bridget. She's a Celtic goddess. Also, you can see Bridgetania is one of her guises. Maman Brigitte in I think that's in Voodoo. She's referred to in that way. She's also a saint, an Irish saint. There's a Saint Bridget. So a lot of the things that in a lot of ways that Catholicism adopted folk customs from around the world and made it work, like Halloween and all that kind of stuff. She was kind of adopted in as a saint. So she's a saint of and goddess of poetry, healing, and smithcraft. So, so we're gonna do some things related to that year. So I'm inviting that energy into my life. Every year that I invite a god or a goddess in, stuff happens that I do not expect. So something that I don't expect will happen is going to happen. When it was Venus, when Venus was the goddess of the year, I left my husband. When Cernunnos was the god of the year, I ended up joining a very traditional kind of wild coven, and that was a wild ride for a few years of my life. That has ended this year. When it was the Morrigan, who's like a badass battle goddess, I actually learned about tenderness and softness, and things not being always the way that they seem. When I was the goddess of the year, I started out thinking it was just going to be bubble baths and affirmations, and it actually turned into humility, self-care, and learning to ask for help. So you invite a fire goddess of creativity, poetry, smithcraft, and healing into your life, she's going to do some stuff. So some things are going to happen. We'll see how that all turns out. But the word of the year, I don't know. Special bonus this year. So I am dating, very seriously dating a person who identifies as sort of culturally Catholic. And so we go to mass together online about once a month or so, I'd imagine. And for those of you who've been listening to the podcast and know me, yes, there was some overlap, but with my marriage, but not in a bad way. Just I was separated for about a calendar year, so we met during the separation. And it's a treasure and a gem, but I won't talk about that person because I'm not going to talk about people without asking them for permission. But anyway, so we've been going to church together about once a month or so, and I was listening, and the priest said, "Oh, Sacred Heart, which is a pretty badass local Catholic parish. If you have to be Catholic, that's the church I would recommend, or the cathedral, just because the cathedral is beautiful. But I don't know how I feel about the Archbishop. Anyway, he said that Pope Francis said, and Pope Francis is badass, pretty much as badass as you can be and still be a pope. So Pope Francis said that the theme of this year, 2021, is it's the year of Saint Joseph. So I actually kind of dig that. I have some daddy issues that I need to work through around fatherhood and things like that. So there's also a beautiful statue of Saint Joseph in the cathedral that I'll go and pray nearby sometimes. So I added a saint of the year. So I'm going to do something with that. I don't know. I'm in a Catholic witch group and I put it out there. We might do a novena or something. I don't know. I'm not really Christo-pagan or a Catholic witch exactly. I identify as a spiritual slut. So I will pray to whomever wants to listen to me as long as I feel like it's not appropriating a culture or a group that I really shouldn't, mess around with or bug. But yeah, that's where we're at. So the goddess of the year is Breed, and the saint of the year is Saint Joseph. And that's what I have for you. So I also have a list of books, but I'm going to do a separate book podcast. So that's going to come out here in the next few days. We're going to talk about some of the books that I read this year. There are so many. I read a lot of books in my lifetime that have changed my life, but there are a couple of little things here and there. So anyway, we typically end with a poem or a prayer, but I forgot to pull mine up. I was going to read you a poem that I wrote about New Year's Day and a snowfall that we had New Year's Day a couple of years ago, but we won't. So I will just end by saying that I wish you a happy and joyous new year, and we are all going through some nonsense right now, but we're doing it. We're doing it. And I encourage you to reach out for help if you need it. If you ever just need to talk and you know me, I am willing and excited to listen to you. So thank you for listening to me and my personal experiences here, because there was a whole lot. There's a whole lot that went on. So thank you for all of you who are walking this journey with me in some way. Have a beautiful and blessed 2021. We're going to get into this whole Roaring 20s Great Gatsby vision that we all had for 2020 that didn't turn out the way that we planned. May you have many blessings in your life, and blessed be, bitches. Okay, so I officially ended on Podbean. So I'm done. Thanks for listening. Those of you who kind of popped in and out, love it. Thanks for your comments and stuff. If you ever have questions or if you have podcast ideas, please send me podcast ideas, because I have ideas, but then I don't know what people want to hear. And so then I just kind of like, well, I don't do it. So anyway, blessed be, bitches. Love you.